Hello from London. Yes, I did say from London. If you're following my Asia Diaries series of vlogs from my recent trip to Singapore, Hong Kong and Japan, you'll be forgiven for thinking that I'm somewhere in Fukuoka at the moment. Please suspend disbelief. There's a bit of a time lag between editing the videos and getting them out there, of course. And I wanted to say something about how my Learning Japanese project is going. For those of you who aren't following the travel vlogs or don't speak those languages and would like to hear what's going on. And I want to make contact with those of you who haven't heard from me in English for a while and to say hello as well, of course. If you're completely new here, well, welcome to the channel. I'm Dr. Gareth Popkins. Here we talk about language learning from many angles. Please do subscribe and you can get my free language learner training by following the link underneath this video. It's also in video form. So today then, a quick update on how my Japanese project has gone in Japan, my experiences of using what I'd learned in the project. The project started in January and ran from January to September in advance of my first trip then in October to attend the Polyglot Conference in Fukuoka in the south of Japan. My aim was to do 30 minutes a day, 7 days a week. That would have meant a total of 130 hours altogether in the language. I actually clocked up 166 hours, so I overshot, and that might suggest an optimistic prognosis for when I arrived in the country. On the other hand, I'd started to realise in the summer that I wasn't really internalising enough of the material I was, covering in the textbooks. And so belatedly, I'd started to do much more work consciously to memorise phrases and frequent and useful vocabulary using flashcards. And I think I started that far too late in the day, so that in some ways, when I arrived in the country, I wasn't able to use actively as much of what I'd learnt or thought I'd learnt as I would have liked. Now, the first feeling actually on arriving in the country was whoosh, a sort of linguistic overwhelm, and I'll come back to that in a moment. But I do want to say there was also a feeling from the moment I stepped on the plane in Hong Kong and started to hear the announcement in Japanese that this already wasn't totally foreign to me, in the sense that I could pick out much better than I would have been able to do otherwise, I'm sure, loan words from English. And also that I could recognise some of the particles and the verb endings which are used very, very frequently in Japanese. So that was already a win. Another win early on was that I was able to use a bit of Japanese when I was checking into the hotel, my first hotel in Fukuoka. And all the way through, really, when I was coming to new hotels, I was able to use a bit of Japanese in the foyer at the counter when checking in, although we tended to end up switching to English. A good thing about being in Japan is that you will not be forced back into English by confident Japanese people who want to use their English, as has happened to me when I was beginning with German in Germany, for example. So that was a good thing. But yeah, initially the main thought was whoosh, overwhelm. My mind seemed to have gone blank and I couldn't remember even those phrases and words and vocabulary that I had learnt, and took a few days for the fog to sort of lift. Then I was using the language, to interact on a basic level in shops, with greetings, using the numbers, and also I took a taxi in Hiroshima and that worked. I was able to get the taxi driver to take me to the station. In restaurants, a bit of Japanese, but I couldn't really cope with menus. I didn't have enough menu vocabulary yet. Fortunately, there were a lot of menus available in English too, and that went for on the public transport systems too, where all the signage and all the ticket machines are bilingual at least, and some also had not only English but Chinese or Korean. So actually moving around in terms of practical life, while occasionally things came in restaurants that I didn't realise I'd ordered, or there was the odd misunderstanding, basically it all worked very smoothly and it wasn't a problem at all getting around with pretty minimal language. Now, I wasn't discouraged by my relatively modest achievements linguistically in the country for several reasons. First of all, because I was realistic. I always say language learning takes a long time, and they say you need between 450 and 750 hours study to get to a level which will enable you to pass the basic lowest level Japanese language proficiency test, level 5. I'd only done 166 hours, so as I realised from the start, I had to be pretty realistic. The other thing, I suppose, is that I know that I've got fluent in other languages in the past. I know what to do, and I know that I just need to keep doing it. and it's only a question of time. So I'm working interactively with good materials, I'm building up gradually my vocabulary. I can then add in, as I've got enough words to have enough things to hook on to, listening practice, a lot of input, increasing more and more input, and start to have some speaking practice too, and eventually that will be coming in much more using online lessons as we go. So I know that it's just a question of time. I've been realistic, and the fact that there wasn't a miracle does not leave me discouraged, because I just wasn't expecting one. So, the other wins were, as well as not feeling completely disoriented linguistically, yes, that I was able to decipher signs in the kana system, the syllabary systems which are used, the katakana and the hiragana. And also that although I haven't got very far with the kanji, the Chinese characters, I was nevertheless, able to recognise some elements of those, and I'd studied a bit of the system, so it no longer seems like a load of squiggles to me. And I want to turn now just to say a bit more about how things are going to develop with Japanese for me in the rest of the year. So yeah, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to continue with my 30-minute a day slot. I'll bring it down from 7 days a week to 5 days a week. But I'm going to take up where I left off with the Japanese from Zero textbook, but not trying to, push forward, always trying to meet targets as to how many chapters or units I've covered. I was trying to do one a week at one stage, but just to keep going, doing a lot more doubling back, a lot more continued work with the flashcards, spaced repetition, and so on. I'll also continue to use the Assimil book, which was my supplementary course, and the Pimsleur audio course. I've now bought level 3, so I'll be working with that as well. I've already started to listen to that in the headphones as I commute to work in the morning, doing that and on the way to the underground, and then using the flashcards in the train, where it's a bit loud to use the headphones. So that's what's going on. I'm still enthused by the language and keen to go further with it. Now, if you're a Japanese learner, how does that sound to you? What was your experience when you first arrived in the country? Or what are you expecting if you've got a trip planned? Do you do things differently from how I've been doing them? If you've got comments or questions, then let me know underneath this video. That's it then on the project. Do look out for the next update, which will be, I suppose, towards the end of November. So in 2 or maybe 3 weeks' time, we'll see how we go. Now, the travel videos will be resuming, and we'll be back to the journey then here on the channel. But if you're not interested in those, don't despair. There's loads of interviews lined up which are going to be coming up. I've got vlogs from the Polyglot conference itself, which will be coming up very soon. I also got time there to interview various language learners and teachers of Japanese who are slightly ahead of the game from me. And so I'll be doing a couple of specialist videos just on Japanese from the Polyglot conference too. So there's lots coming up on the channel. I've also been to the language show recently in London, and I'll be covering that here in the channel. I've got interviews lined up, and there'll be more quick tips as we move on towards the end of the year. So that was it from me for today. As always, thanks a lot for being with me. Don't forget to subscribe for the vibe if you haven't done already. If you like this video, please do throw me a thumbs up. It really helps the channel, as does tickling the bell for notifications of when the next video appears. Thanks as always for being with me, and see you next time. Good luck in the meantime with your language learning too. Bye.